I don't have a cold opening for this video. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is a show that I can't quite put into so few words that a cold opening would work. Instead, I'm going to open by thanking my wonderful patrons, Lars Espen, Gemen5 and Will, my Discord moderator 2K55, as well as Lennox and Sage Panic for suggesting JoJo's Bizarre Adventure for Red Hot Go. If there is another show you would like me to try, please let me know in the comments. Before watching for the first time, I knew JoJo's by its reputation for bold character design, bombastic animation, and an absurd sense of humour. And all those aspects are made clear within the first 3 episodes. The character design is definitely unique, the animation is certainly over the top in some areas, and the humour is delightfully absurd, less in that it tells absurd jokes, and more so that the absurdity creates humour. After finishing the first few episodes, I believe what I have seen is JoJo's origin story, as he starts out as a weak, spoilt brat, and by the end has defeated his first vampire. I do like that our protagonist doesn't start out perfect and needs to adapt to his changed circumstances. Those changed circumstances being the introduction of Dio into his life, who certainly makes you hate him from the get-go. Unfortunately, that's almost all the praise I can muster for JoJo's at this point, as most other aspects of the show left me annoyed or bored. For starters, this anime suffers from a common anime hang-up that I cannot stand: verbal diarrhea. Take the scene where Dio stands at his father's grave, for instance. This scene is beautifully animated. Dio spits on the grave and clutches the letter left to him. Everything you need to know about what Dio is thinking is conveyed by his actions alone. But no. Because we're apparently 5 years old, Dio spends the entire scene monologuing everything that we could have figured out for ourselves. Or there's a later scene where JoJo is accused of being a snitch. Once the accusers have left, the animators brilliantly display JoJo's frustration and devastation. We know why this is happening to him, and so does he. But once again, the audience is not trusted to figure this out on their own, as JoJo monologues throughout the entire sequence that this is Dio's doing, he just knows it. This comes to a head in the 3rd episode. Imagine this scene. An older, sickly man has been stabbed. The dramatic music is playing. The protagonist cradles this figure and laments that they are losing someone so important to them. The dire tone alone conveys that this character has reached the end of their story. Then some side character pipes up with, "That wound is fatal." Oh really? The wound is fatal, you say? As in, he isn't going to make it. The fact the entire rest of the scene has conveyed perfectly well without your input. The wound is fatal. What, are you afraid I was out of the room until this moment? Do you think I'm incapable of inferring important information from circumstance? Do you lack faith in my ability to interpret the most basic of narrative tropes? If there's one thing I can't stand, it's a show that treats me like I'm stupid. And JoJo's treats me like a very particular kind of stupid. This lack of subtlety also expands into characterization, especially the characterization of Dio. One of the first things he does in front of JoJo is punch his dog in the face. Okay, that's pretty messed up, but with the excuse he offers, it could be left up to the audience to conclude that Dio is bad news. Until the next scene where he beats up JoJo for no reason and confirms that he punched his dog because he wanted to, because he hates how dogs are loyal to humans. Okay, so now we know without a doubt that Dio is a bastard. Like, hurting animals is about as textbook as you can get when it comes to making the audience hate a character, but we get the picture. But just to make sure you really understand, he then spends a chunk of the next episode obviously isolating JoJo by turning the people he loves against him, and relishes the pain he is causing his new brother. Okay, so his cruelty goes beyond hurting animals. I already hated Dio before this point, but what's a little more to the bad pile, right? But just in case that doesn't do it, when he discovers JoJo's girlfriend, he sexually assaults her, and then physically assaults her when she doesn't act grateful enough. Okay, showrunners, I get it. This guy is irredeemably terrible. You can stop establishing it now. But just in case you're still unsure of how you're supposed to feel about this manipulative, abusive predator, when JoJo finally gives him the beating he has had coming to him since the start, he retaliates by murdering JoJo's dog in the most horrific way you can imagine. All of this happens in episode 1. Are you getting the idea that Dio is a bad guy yet? However, there is one aspect of Dio's character that I actually quite like. I'm not going to get into too much detail here because I genuinely didn't see a lot of it coming and I don't want to spoil it, but Dio does suffer throughout the episodes I have seen, and every moment of misery outside of his unfortunate upbringing are all entirely of his own making. That beating from Jojo I mentioned earlier is a direct result of having assaulted his girlfriend. Every other bad thing that happens to him after that is easily traced back to something he did. He could have had everything he ever wanted, everything he ever needed, if he wasn't a massive dick. Which is genuinely quite tragic for a character with the upbringing that Dio had to endure. It's in revising this script for the final time before recording it that I realised something. Perhaps the lack of subtlety that has made up the vast majority of this video is intentional and meant to be part of the humour. Perhaps lines like "that wound is fatal" are supposed to be funny, and if so, this is definitely a brand of humour that resonates with people, given the show's overwhelming popularity. But I was hoping that the show's humour would be mostly like that viral cherry eating clip. But I've walked away from the first 3 episodes feeling rather underwhelmed. Perhaps it will pick up now that the origin story is over? But for now, despite having striking character design and some decent moments, the show is weighed down by horrendously clumsy monologuing and an utter lack of subtlety. From ice cold to red hot, I give JoJo's Bizarre Adventure a rating of chilly. I'll watch a few more episodes to see if it'll finally earn its reputation, but if it doesn't pick up, I'll be dropping this one. And that is all for this episode of Red Hot Go. I'd like to thank my patrons: Orion Tran, Lars Espen, Data52, Jaman5, Lemon Shark, Pixcalibur, Alberto Cruz, Tyler Bennett, Tenka, Jeremy Pashik, Fireclaw, Soren, Christopher Wang, Will, and Jazzo Iwa. If you would like to support the channel further, consider becoming a patron yourself. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time.